You all know YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you type in and you look for the channel Change WA, Change WA, you can see playlists of different videos that we've put together. They're not all branded Freedom Foundation, but most of those Glenn and I have done. So you can see a lot more in San Juan and the things that we've done, more of the videos in Seattle, tons of videos in Thurston County that we've done. You can see kind of what we're doing. But the Freedom Foundation, I mean, it's not rah-rah Freedom Foundation. The Freedom Foundation is about 20 people in Olympia in a very humble building. And we realized one thing, that the Freedom Foundation itself is not going to change Washington and the political landscape of Washington. That we have to go out and inspire you to be able to do these kinds of things. And so the video that we put together, you know, they're not highly produced. We do those videos, Glenn and I, with the kind of equipment, $350, that you can go buy yourself. So we're showing you how to do this stuff. It's a little flip cam, it's a little shotgun mic, it's very cheap equipment on a computer and software. It's the kinds of things that you can do. And don't rely on us to continue to do these videos. You have to go out and start to do this stuff and broadcast these stories. And until you show how these ordinances are actually harming the people in your community, you won't start to affect change. You have to show that there's real harm to people. And then your politicians start to listen more. The work that Steve Neugenbauer and S&R Company is doing, and the kind of deep research and the technical side you need to have as well, but you need to wage a public relations campaign, and the way that you do that in this day and age is with videos. We do teach classes on how to do that, so we have a number of different kinds of workshops that we can help you with. We can do 1 hour, from simple 1 hour public speaking and how to testify, all the way up to a couple of day workshop that we call our Rainmakers Workshop, because you will start to create rain in your community, just like we did in San Juan, where we'll help you prioritize issues, and we'll teach you all the way through how to produce videos, how to tell stories, how to change the narrative, all those kinds of things. We've done that a couple places, and the Seattle Energy Benchmarking and Reporting one is one that's just starting, and we're starting to work with a group there and start to teach them about how to get their word out. But one that comes to mind is a little gal in Thurston County, and we taught her how to stand up for herself. And she had a horse ranch. Gal's name was Misty Chastain. She had a horse ranch where she brought in autistic kids to deal with the horses and help autistic kids. She was also doing some kind of a bed and breakfast and swimming lessons, all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's one of those ideas of the invasion of privacy. Her neighbor turned her in, spied on her, turned her in. The county came after her with 11 land use violations. And she doesn't have the money or the time to fight the county in that kind of litigation. So what she did, she came to us and she saw that we were doing a project called Stop Taking Our Property, Thurston County down there, and said, hey, I've seen what you guys are doing. Is there, what can I do, or can you help me? And we said, well, we don't litigate on behalf of any singular person. We're a 501c3. Otherwise, we'd be an attorney's law firm. That's not what we do. But what we do is we show citizens like you how to stand up for yourself. And we said, Lee, can you go down and testify in front of the commissioners and take your friends down there? And we helped her with the narrative and how to talk to the commissioners and how to tell her story. And she went down there and they made very compelling testimony. And at that meeting, the commissioner said, you know what, Misty, we're going to send the heads of all of our departments out to your land, and we're going to take a look and see what we can do. Well, she came down running back to us and said, what do I do? And I said, well, get your volunteers and get a bunch of video cameras, and when those guys come out to your property, say, speak loudly and smile, you're going to be on YouTube. And she did just that. I mean, there was 5 county employees that came out, heads of all the departments, going to look at these 11 land use violations, and they were met with a whole horse posse of guys with video cameras. And they said, smile and speak loudly because you're going to be on YouTube. And it was 2 weeks later the county dropped all the land use violations. The guys were out there, said, hey, that looks good to me, we don't see any problems, so forth. They just totally backed off. So I think armed citizens today are citizens with video cameras. It's not the solution to everything, but it's a big solution in the waging the public war. Touch briefly on the energy benchmarking and reporting and these smart meters, because I think that's a huge area that's going to start to move into the invasion of privacy, and it's a property rights issue. And that is these smart meters. There's a couple of different styles. There's ones that are electric smart meters, and that is where they can monitor your electric use under the guise of basically these peak power times when they can, maybe move your cooling load back a couple of degrees. They can actually change your thermostat in your house to save energy, kind of for this conservation and common good idea. My father has one of those on his house down in Las Vegas. That's one style. The other style is a water meter, and apparently from these water meters they put these water meters on that meter down to the second of your water use, and they can model these different surges of water use and determine if you have a certain, if that was a toilet flush, or if that was running your dishwasher, if you have an older toilet or a newer toilet, or if you're running your your washing machine and so forth. So they can basically tell by the meter what kind of stuff you have in your house without ever going in your house. Well, that may not be a bad idea under some kind of deal, but you can imagine government at some point is going to figure out how to regulate or make you change what you got, because they're collecting this data. Government is never going to just let this data sit idle. They're going to use it against you. And that's a lot of the energy benchmarking and reporting idea that's happening in Seattle. So virtually every commercial building, any commercial building over 10,000 square feet, or any multi-family unit over five units or more, have to report now the energy use by tenant and by area of their building to the city of Seattle. What used to be a voluntary program under the EPA, you go to their website, it's a really cool deal. If you're energy conscious, you want to save energy, you can plug all this data in, and they would give you suggestions on how to save energy. Now, it's mandatory in the city of Seattle. You have to now disclose that energy use to anybody that comes and asks for it. So a prospective tenant, they ask you, what's your energy use? You have to provide them the documentation that you've done on this website. A lender, if you want to do upgrades to your building, lender could ask for that information. Well, you could imagine in a real estate transaction, for instance, if I'm a seller of a property and somebody comes to me and says, under their disclosure laws in real estate, says, hey, I want to see what kind of energy your building uses, and I provide them the reporting that I've done. They move in next month and they're not getting the same energy performance out of their building. Have I made a material fact problem in my real estate transaction, and can they come back after me and make a claim that the building's not performing as I disclosed to them? I mean, there's some real problems that are on the horizon contractually, I think, with that kind of idea. But worse yet is, what if the city of Seattle decides, well, it was a voluntary program, we now made mandatory. That's really working out well now, that's good for us. But you know what? Now we can tell you how much energy you should be able to use. So if you come to us to get a remodeling permit to maybe upgrade your siding, and you're not meeting our benchmarking goals, can we now make you upgrade your insulation or upgrade your windows or do different kinds of upgrades to your building outside of what you wanted to do, or you don't get the permit? I don't think in the city of Seattle that's too far down the horizon.
Right.
The point that Alice Hopkin makes in the video, and I thought she was a very smart young lady when we filmed her, is she said that they're having to report my energy use from my particular unit, and if somebody starts to see a pattern of energy use from my unit, do they know when I'm there and when I'm not there?
Right.
And she wasn't happy about that. We started talking about that with her a little bit. She said, you know what? At the end of one of those videos, she says, be careful the information that you put out there. And she said, hey, the energy use, how much energy I use is up to me. If I use more, I'm going to have to pay more. If I use less, I pay less. That's my decision. She goes, I'm very energy conscious, and I use the right kind of light bulbs, and I turn my lights off and this kind of stuff. But she said, it's up to me. It's not up to anybody else to tell me what to do. And I don't think we should be giving up our ability to make those kinds of decisions down to how much water we flush in our toilet, or down to what kind of light bulbs we use in our light sockets. I don't think government has any legitimate place or any role of telling us what to do in those areas. So
The only thing I was going to say is that we did a couple different variations on that video, so you'll see a few. I really like the emphasizing the privacy invasion of that issue, because especially if you look at the profile of the average renter in Seattle, they're going to want to know that somebody can go in and tell when they're going on vacation. Do they have somebody living with them or not? When does their boyfriend or girlfriend visit? Or do they? There's all kinds of stuff you can find out. And once you give something to the government, it is public record. So the reality is anybody who wants to get it can get it. And if you don't think that's true, then you should see some of the stuff we get from the government frequently. And here's something to be aware of. When somebody files a complaint against your property, that is public record. The identity of the person, including in Thurston County, they sign a little form where they say, I don't want my identity disclosed. It's still there when somebody files the information request. So, and I just want to talk about that when it comes to anonymous complaints on property rights violations in general. This is a huge area of abuse all over the state of Washington, if it's allowed to be anonymous. San Juan County had I remember I was listening to the planning department, 500 complaints in a given window of time. And of those, all but like 16 had no merit. So the rest of it was just busy work, people running around because neighbors were complaining about neighbors. That was what I remember hearing at one meeting. Out in University Place, out in Spokane, they had a situation where the county or the city changed the law, sign ordinance or something, and then some friends of a couple employees drove around and turned in 500 businesses on this violation anonymously, right? They just happened to find out who they were in order to justify the job of some of the employees at their city so that they could process all these violations. So anonymous complaints, if that's allowed under building that these types of complaints like property rights violations, that's really something you want to look at just from a structural standpoint and make that illegal because of all the abuse that can happen, and make sure that they're publicized. If you publicize serial abusers, then they stop abusing them. They just do.
I think it makes for a much more impactful story when you do that. We did do an additional video around Stephanie Buffin. It was her explaining why she was trespassing, essentially. She didn't say she was trespassing, but it was her explanation of it in this community meeting.
It was beautiful.
And that video has almost 1,000 views in San Juan County. So it's gone viral for San Juan County.
Right.
So, well, it was at a community meeting, and somebody asked her specifically, and she got up and she gave her explanation, and it was weak. It wasn't believable. I mean, anybody with two eyes that can see saw that she was lying in that, and so it really ruined her credibility. Like I said before, the Friends of San Juan's had an outsized influence on San Juan County. I think their influence is diminishing rapidly by the day because of these few videos, and also because of putting Stephanie Buffin on the video. I also think that it's important when you do these videos about how people are harmed in their community. This is something for your citizen advocacy program, that you not pin it generally on government, and you not pin it generally like on the county council, but you try to pin it on one or two people that made the decision, and you put them in that what we call the political vice. You squeeze them as hard as you possibly can with that video. A particular legislator, somebody who made the decision, you want to put it on somebody and let them try to explain why they did it. And the explanation is always worse than the assertion.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard government explain something that made any kind of sense, and they spent a lot of time explaining. So.
Yeah.